Welcome to Therapy, Tech, and Takeout, where humor meets healing with bite-sized chunks of wisdom and techie tips. I'm Tony Teixeira. I am a therapist, entrepreneur, recovering overthinker, and a bit of an ethics nerd.
And I'm Jackie Toll. I'm an entrepreneur, an unapologetic spreadsheet addict. Today, I'm an executive event coordinator or facilitator, and sometimes I'm a low-rent stand-up comedian.
Jackie,
So great to have
great
you with
to
us, Tony. How are you doing this week?
I was just thinking about all the many hats you wear,
Right?
all the time.
Somebody is like, you want to try this? I'm like, sure, why not? Let's give it a whirl. I always love hearing about businesses and what they're doing.
Yeah. I love how you say yes. It's really very cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
What
have you been
happening?
vibing on this week? What's going on? I'm so excited to hear.
It's such a beautiful weekend. It was just such a beautiful experience. I am part of the Opening the Heart workshop community, and I support staff, and I've been doing this since about 2017. And it's an experiential workshop where you really let feelings do their thing, from
That's
up
so cool.
to down. And it is very cool. And it's witnessing the bravery and the courage of so many people who were bringing, trauma and deep wounds into the workshop. And we create a beautiful holding safe space for all of that to take place. But they do that for each other too. So the workshop wouldn't work if the people who were there also couldn't create that space
For
with
sure.
us. So it just brings me so much joy to be part of that and to have people trust me and watch them do that work and go from where they were when they came in to where they're leaving. You get a feeling of lightness and there's some joy for people. So I love that. So just a shout out to my Opening the Heart workshop community. And Kripalu, and we also do it up at Omega in Rhinebeck, New York. So it's really cool.
That's so neat. I saw you post about it on Facebook, and I'm like, I want to go to that.
You would love it.
I would love that. I need to get up to New Jersey.
Yes, it's in Kripalu is in Massachusetts. It's in Lenox, Massachusetts,
Nice.
and Omega's in Rhinebeck, New York. Yes, so when you're up this way, I will take you.
Fantastic. Oh, I can't wait. That's wonderful.
Great. And how about you? What's happening in your world?
Busy, getting ready to open a new business. Like I said, I've been helping my friend get ready for her board meetings and things like that for her company. So yeah, just working a lot more than I usually do, but I love it. I love to be busy. I'm happy about that.
Speaking of loving what you do, and I noticed that the more you love that you do more things.
Yeah, it's true. I think it begets itself. I knew that on some level, but it's once I start putting my toe in the water, then more things come up, and I need to probably get better at saying no, but I'm just so interested. Like you said, I love to see things go from one place and develop into the next, and to have a group of people come together and be vulnerable and try to, make progress towards goals. It's such a cool thing to be a part of.
I think this speaks to the topic that we're talking about today.
I think you're right, yeah.
In some ways, if I think about it, I don't need to go away for a weekend to go work because that's really what I do. But the fact that I'm in service of others and that also feeds me and is part of my values and what I do, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like, it kind of feeds into the who that I am and helps me be more productive and creative and all of that stuff. And that's just really about the topic that we're talking about today.
Absolutely.
How people work.
I know it's not a technology specific sort of topic today, but from an entrepreneurial perspective, having spent most of my time in the tech space, but then no matter who you are or where you work, you're most likely interacting with technology, and that technology is most likely creating intrusions into your day and interruptions into your flow and things like that. So that's really what we're talking about today, is sort of the idea of burnout and the ethical costs of this always on culture that a lot of enterprise, especially in the tech space, but across the board, thrive on and hold up as a gold standard.
Yeah, you shared an article from The Atlantic with me
Mm-hmm.
about this topic of that go 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 mentality, that the belief is that you can't be successful unless you're doing more and producing more, but at what cost, and what
For
is that?
sure.
And is it, not only is it sustainable, but does it really work? Are
Right.
people
Does it
more
actually yield better results? Yeah. Scientifically looking at that. I think that's so interesting. And I think one of the things that jumped out at me from the article, knowing you're a runner, was that first analogy they had, right? And
Mhm.
of if you speak to a marathon runner, like they'll most likely say one of the most important parts of their training is rest.
It's recovery. It's the
Recovery.
recovery
Yeah.
phase. My running coach taught me that. He had me check my heart rate variability every morning, because that's an indicator. I mean, there's a lot of different markers in there, but what you're really trying to get out of it is that number is telling you how well you are recovering.
Yeah.
To have this flexible nervous system to be able to recover. And if my numbers were in a certain range, I wasn't allowed to run that day. I had to prioritize resting and recovering, more
Yeah.
sleep, or some kind of activity. It could be exercise, but it might be walking or yoga
Right.
or something like that.
Something to get your nervous system calmed down.
Right, right. So there's a real science behind recovery, because when you can recover, when your nervous system can recover, then you can do the next thing. Whereas if you're like in that down phase, well, then your next workout's going to suck.
Yeah.
It's going to deplete you even more, and it's going to actually put you more behind in your running. Yeah,
Absolutely. And put you more at risk for things like injury, too, I would imagine.
absolutely. Right,
I
right,
thought that the
correct.
statistics at the beginning of this article were shocking. 74% of employees feel like they're in a personal energy crisis, and 68.5% feel disengaged at work. Those are horrific. Like, if any other system operated with that type of failure rate, like, we'd be fixing it or not pushing it out any farther.
Right.
But this is obviously something that just gets sort of ignored.
And so it makes you think about, what are the ways people are bending themselves into those boxes to do those things when they feel disengaged and they don't feel empowered at work, and the impact it has on their mental health
Yeah,
to live
absolutely.
like that.
Yeah. I think, early in my career and still in a lot of the organizations that I come up, with, that sort of driving towards burnout is admirable. Like that's like the gold standard of
Hmm.
what they want everybody doing. And it's maybe not even a spoken thing, but culturally, like if you're not always on
Yeah.
the brink of
You,
collapse, like you're
you
not
don't,
working hard enough.
you don't want to be the first person walking out the door at 5 o'clock,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
100%, right?
And I
And you don't
thought
want
it
to be
was
the last one strolling in either.
right, or the last one strolling in. I thought it was amazing about how many people don't take vacation days. They don't
Yeah.
take all their vacation days.
I'm ashamed to admit, like, I learned back years ago from a deck that Netflix had put out that when they switched to their unlimited vacation days, they had a lot less uptake on vacation. It
Hmm.
reduced and so I switched my company back then to unlimited vacation days. One, I liked the idea of giving people the flexibility if you needed 3 weeks because you were getting married or whatever, like, it's not a big deal. But to know that in a culture where productivity is so highly valued, that it actually made it where people chose not to. And like you compare that to a situation like a bank where you force people to take vacation because that's where you find fraud. Like when somebody steps in and does your job, that's where you find errors and fraud and things like that. And so really, really different approaches. But I think the key is that burnout isn't a personal failure so much as like a systemic failure from
Yes.
the design of these corporations.
Yes. And absolutely. It's really not about the individual. It doesn't say about like their capacity, but their
Right.
capacity within this
The
system
system.
that is really creating burnout. And I was very curious about if you had any personal experiences with burnout and like kind of being in this culture.
I think the interesting thing for me was burnout would always catch up with me when something happened where I had to take a break. I remember my grandfather-in-law years ago was nearing the end of his life and he went into hospice. And so I took some time to kind of like be with the family and process that. And I immediately got so sick. Like I've never been so sick in my whole life. And I couldn't even it was the first time that I had a job where I couldn't respond to emails right away or, things like that. And I just remember I was like, it just must be that I've hit the wall. And my body was just like, oh, you took a breath? Well, we're going to use that to get caught up now. And it really wasn't like rejuvenating, but it was obviously, hitting a wall. I'm curious from your perspective, what should we be looking for? Or like, what are the cues that, it's a harmful expectation in an environment that we're in from a work perspective? What are there things that we can look at, as far as the expectations or whatnot, that would give us an idea that maybe something's not healthy here?
Yeah. I what I'm leaning more towards is what that might feel like on the inside versus than what
Okay,
you see,
yeah.
because one person might be motivated by a certain kind of environment that might feel like they have a lot of buy-in or investment in you.
Well, I'm motivated by those high stress like environments
Right.
100%.
Right. And that might feed into something. I think I think looking at what the experience is like for you and what's happening. For example, productivity is actually going to go down. If it's going down, you're probably moving toward burnout. You're more irritable. That's moving toward burnout. You're starting to feel like you don't care about what it is you're doing and maybe even the people around you. That's probably an indicator that there's burnout. Probably isolating, not wanting to talk as much, feeling kind of like a little bit shut down, not only at work, but when it starts especially bleeding over into your everyday life. You're not doing the leisure activities you like, you're not doing all those things. I mean, everybody hates Monday morning, but I'm really talking about that, real
Chronic.
sense
Yeah.
of, I can't motivate myself to even move and to get there. And I feel like really completely shut down. And maybe even feeling like the only way you can get through your day is if you turn something off. If you're like feeling like I have to turn a part of me off to be able to do that. What this really looks scary, as I'm saying this happens to therapists sometimes. And this is really scary when you're working with people and you have to keep an open heart. Speaking of opening the heart, you have to keep that part of you open so that you can allow that safety to happen. And, so in some fields, and I think in health, this happens in healthcare, and that's another scary field.
For sure.
For some people, it might not. That burnout will have a cost on them, but in some fields, it's going to have a cost on the individual and also all the people that they're engaged with, all that clientele, and that can be really scary. And then people start making mistakes. So maybe even in industries we think it doesn't matter, it matters because then there's errors, and that has an impact on people.
And you think about, too, some of those I don't want to say high risk, but like I think about aviation, right? They put like guardrails in there, right? Like how many times have I not been able to get my flight because the crew's over their time limit? Like more times than I'd like to think about. But those are important, and they're there to keep the safety standards high.
Yeah.
How important is that for people that like do like, driving places or, any of that stuff, right? Like you need to have your faculties about you.
At the same time, can I just say something about the aviation industry?
I would love it.
Yes, they turn that off, and they can't work after certain hours. By the way, it took me 9 hours to get home from Disney because of that. One thing, but pilots and aviation professionals have trouble accessing mental health services because if they have a diagnosis, they can't fly. They can't work.
Yeah.
So that's, there's a mixed message there. We're prioritizing you and your mental health, but at the same time,
but don't ask for help.
Don't ask for help. Yeah, not officially.
It's shocking. I don't know if you saw that HBO series. It's I forget what it's called, but it has the guy Nathan something. But this whole the rehearsal, I think is what it's called. But this whole season was on aviation, and he wanted to. Part of the things he came up about himself was maybe he was autistic, but he was also going to get his pilot's license, and he's like, I'm just not gonna. He had taken the test, but he wound up choosing not to get the answers because of how that could impact his ability to fly, which is wild. And then when you think about it with depression or, other things too, just pretty shocking.
Yeah. But that also speaks to burnout. Like people who are feeling that way, what are they supposed to do if they're working in an environment that doesn't respect that or provide any support for that?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, really sort of a shocking gap. I mean, I definitely get the idea that like you don't want perhaps somebody who is like severely depressed sitting in the pilot seat of your airplane, but like somebody who's sought treatment for that versus somebody who's hiding it. Like I'd feel a lot safer with the person who's seeking treatment
Than
than
hiding it.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But the other thing that was really interesting about this article is they mentioned time and time again about companies that do provide resources for their employees and create an environment that's focused on the individual's buy-in to feel like they're
Yeah.
respected and their work is valued. And when they do that, those people are more creative, more productive, more
Absolutely.
motivated.
I loved the article introduced this gentleman, Tony Schwartz, I think was his name. And he was the founder of this thing called the Energy Project. And some of the things that they found in that, which were really interesting, was that like humans work best in 90-minute cycles. And so like structuring work around sort of these natural rhythms, perhaps, that we all have. And that when you do that, they have, like you said, higher creativity, higher health, and higher engagement. That was it was fun to see somebody actually taking sort of the concept and then putting the scientific data around it to bring that to because how that works then in the real life is, you're able to do deep work and you're not exhausting yourself context switching between a million different
Right.
things.
Right. I mean, that alone can speak a lot to improving, reducing burnout. If you're working and you're not multitasking, if you're not getting
Yes.
interrupted, if you have a block of time where you can really focus on the one thing that you're doing. And I did that and I do that. I'll sometimes leave my phone like in a other room completely and I'll work on a project and I'll work for 50 minutes and I'll get up. And that was actually one of the things they mentioned in the article.
Yeah.
I consider that my work block. So I'll work for 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break, make sure my phone's not in the room with me because it really is, even just sitting there is a distraction. You
Well,
feel like you
100%.
want
It's
to
right there. Yeah, you can just grab it.
just reach for it. But it's such a society that multitasks. We want to do way too many things.
For sure. And like even today in this group that I'm leading, I put some ground rules up on the board. And the first one was like no devices unless you're, looking up a fact that we need or something like that. But to really like, we're not looking at our emails. We're not dealing with those things that are coming in. We're really here to focus for the time being. And we'll take plenty of breaks so you can get back to that stuff. Like the world isn't going to end in the 45 minutes. We're going to sit and talk about this stuff. And it's
Jackie,
refreshing to see people doing it and happy to do it.
but you were a leader who put this into practice and in effect.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
And
Love
really
it.
successful. I think even, everybody right away shut their laptops and everybody's been real engaged. So it does make a big difference. I was never a fan of it when I was in corporate America. I loved to be in a meeting and listening to what's going on in the meeting, but then also doing my work. Because especially when you go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting all day long, you don't have time to get your work done. So you have to find places, you have to it forces you to multitask. But I think it speaks to the importance of the conversation, right? Like this is a strategic execution planning for a full year plan. And like these people, like it's very important to them to get this stuff done correctly versus, maybe a sales call that you're on and people are walking through their pipelines and you don't really care and you're doing something else. So I think also being able to find the right times to multitask and the times where it's really, not right to multitask and having leadership help people find that I think is important too.
Yeah. I like how you're not throwing multitasking out of the window. For some
Even though they
people,
say it doesn't really exist.
for some people, that might be motivating in some ways. That might be the thing that drives them being able to. I know I have a little bit of that in me. If I have one project, I actually feel like, something's missing or like,
Yeah.
what am I do? It feels like, I don't know, not that I'm not doing enough, but there's a sense that I just like feeling like I can connect to more. Right.
Right.
I'm having a bigger impact. For me, the motivation is about, I think, having a bigger impact. So I like having a bunch of different projects and that feels really good. So, but within that, I try to make room for each thing separately.
Yeah.
And also, so I don't get burnt out as a therapist, I do other things
Yeah.
because that actually helps me not get burnt out.
I bet. And I bet I know in healthcare overall, it's a huge problem. But I would imagine, that translates, specifically to therapists as well.
Yeah.
Burnout being a big issue. Because, like, I can just imagine, you know, the emotional work and then just how hard it is to listen and pay attention. Like, I think people underestimate the mental energy and the exhaustion that can happen from a day of just paying attention and being present. I know you're doing a lot more than that, but like just
Yeah.
those things on their own can be really
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah. If you have really good self-care and really good boundaries and do some of the things they talk about in the article, they talk about like self development, like even in your career and taking sabbaticals, adding
Yeah.
all those things into the mix doesn't contribute to burnout. It makes it feel a little bit lighter. You can stay more engaged and it can be more motivating. So it's really, I think therapists especially, I mean, this is for everyone. I really think we need to look at our self-care. We need to look at how we develop our abilities. I think staying stuck, like I learned something and I'm just doing that one thing over and over again, that's going to lead to burnout, but really being opening up and finding enriching opportunities, and corporations can do that.
For sure.
Definitely taking breaks, being, embracing those vacations and really getting away. I mean, I put on my out of the office message. I let all my clients know I am not reachable. We have a plan if
Yeah.
they need help or support, because I really do need to unplug and get away.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah.
I think it's something everybody deserves. What are there small things you would recommend people do sort of to help
Mhm.
regulate their nervous system on a daily basis?
Yeah, good question. I love that. Well, one thing I thought about is like, being able to take those breaks, like if you take a break every hour for just a little while, like even getting up and walking around for a little bit, or just focusing on your breathing for 5 minutes. Like a lot of people, I can't do an hour, I don't have time for an hour meditation or even a
Yeah.
20-minute meditation. Well, do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 3 minutes to just kind of breathe? And the best kind of breathing is, I like to teach people 3 to 5. So a count of 3 to inhale and a count of 5 to exhale. That's going to engage your sympathetic part, the parasympathetic part of your nervous system a little bit more, helping you usually to kind of calm down and settle and like almost reset
Mhm.
some of the noise that might be going on. So a 5-minute breathing break would be good.
I love that.
Yeah, making opportunities to get up and like even just get away from your desk and even just walk to the bathroom every
Yeah.
hour or get some water.
Go get some
Um,
water.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the e-breaks that they were talking about. Like, how do you feel about like a social media break and like scrolling for a little while? Do you think that's a good use of
I think those
technology?
are great. Like, sorry, excuse me. I know back when we started talking, we tried like some mini breaks from our phones and things like that. And while, training yourself to do it and getting in the habit of it is difficult, but I definitely felt better doing it.
Yeah.
And I think keeping, your like instant messenger off, or, the things that pop up and interrupt you when you're sitting in front of your computer to do deep work, I think is
Yeah.
super important. And it's turning your email off, whatever it is, anything that's going to pop up. I know even on my computer, it just popped up. It told me where my dog was sitting. Like, I don't need that. Like, pop up and let me know that when I'm trying to get
Yeah.
focused work done, right? Like,
Right.
I think that that is really important. And I think
Yeah.
also for me, one of the things that helped was like kind of having a shutting down ritual when I would leave the office at all different times and all different hours of the evening, but like
Mm,
having something where I closed my computer and I took a breath and I like sat in my
yeah.
car for a minute and I felt my feet, connecting to the floor, and like just kind of was like, and then I thought about the bath I was going to take when I got home, and really just kind of start to,
Mhm.
separate yourself from the work too, for me
Yeah.
was really helpful
Yeah.
in trying to,
That
like, manage that.
That's helpful for me too. I do some workshops I've done for teachers and mental health professionals and nurses and other like healthcare people. And it's funny that the title of this episode is about burnout and boundaries. And I do talks about this topic. And I share the story of, I was a pretty new social worker and I was working in an intensive outpatient treatment program with patients who were dual diagnosed mental health and addiction. And a lot of them also, also struggled financially. There's so much going on,
Right, yeah, you had
you know,
people in crisis
y-
from
you know,
multiple
a
fronts.
marginalized population, right?
Yeah.
And I was already overwhelmed, and they gave me one more thing to do, like a new kind of paperwork. I
Right.
walked out of that meeting and I had a panic attack. It was the first panic attack I had ever had. I couldn't stop
Yeah.
hyperventilating, and two lovely coworkers, one each came beside me, grabbed my elbow, and brought me into an office, gave me a paper bag, helped me slow my breathing down. And I said, I can't live like this. I have to do something, and I have to make a change right now. And out of that came the practices that I share with people around burnout and boundaries, because they really saved me and kept me working as a therapist, or else I would have quit and given
Right.
up.
You would have been like, this is not for me.
This is not for me. And one of them is something very similar to what you just shared. And that was at the end of the day, when I would leave the office, I would put my hand on the handle. And as I was walking out the door, I would say, I have like a little mantra for myself about how I was leaving everybody behind and they were all going to be safe and okay until the next day. And subsequently, like coming into the office, I would put my hand on the handle. I would say, my kids are all okay and they'll be okay until I can get back to them later, so that I could also be there for the clients. Like I
Right.
wanted to leave and then be okay for my family, and then leave my family so that I could behind, kind of that stuff behind. So then I could be there for them 100% or as much as possible. And that was one of the first practices that I implemented for myself that helped me start building my own tool bag kind of
For sure. No, I
circumvent
think that's
burnout.
brilliant, right? Like, I mean, that's so important. And that's another place where those intrusions come, especially as a parent and a mom, right? Like when something's wrong with the kids, you're usually the
Mhm.
first call on the sheet. And so it's
Yeah,
like you're in the middle of work and then you have to like pivot to figure something else
right.
out
Yeah.
at times and things like that. So
And some
we
days
are
it was
pulled in so
harder
many
than
directions.
than
Yeah.
than others to leave that behind. Clients in crisis, but they were in the hospital. Okay, I know they'll be okay. My kids, anything could
Yeah.
happen, right? But for the most part, it was really about, I'm not going to deal with that stuff now. I'm going to
Yeah.
like kind of turn that off so I can be present, and then I can come. Really, it's so important to be able to, that's like multitasking in your head when you're holding
Yeah.
space for all the
All that
things,
stuff. I
all
had
that
that
stuff.
happen to me yesterday. In fact, I had so many like little things that I needed to do and I wanted to do a good job doing this thing, but I had just heard about it and there were like all these things and I tried sitting down and doing some deep breathing for I actually tried laying down and doing some deep breathing for around 5 minutes and it just wasn't kicking. Just hadn't really lowered the
Yeah.
temperature in my brain. And so then I was like, you know what? One thing I know for me that always kind of gives me that like serene sense is yoga nidra. And so I'm like, can I find a 5-minute yoga nidra where I just connect with all the parts of my body and see if that helps me get regulated enough that I can not be like reactionary and like
Yeah.
overstressed and stuff. And that really helped. So I think it is, if one thing doesn't work, try another one
Yeah.
too. And
That's
like, it's like 5 minutes,
an
right? It's like,
important
so I
lesson.
spent 10 minutes. Like, who cares? It's not like I
That
spent 3 hours.
so important. I love that you said that, like to do the thing that works for you. It might not be one thing, it might be the next thing. And it's not about getting completely regulated perfectly,
Yeah.
but being regulated enough so that
Yeah.
then you know
You can
what the next
handle.
step is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But for me, it was noticing that I was just like not handling everything well. And I was just kind of like in this loop of sort of a paralysis to move forward on anything because I was stressed about all of it. And yeah. And I think the things that work for one day might not work the next. And so having sort of your library or your tool belt of tools that you can pull from and do them all sort of in micro doses is super helpful for
Yeah.
sure. For me, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this speaks to burnout on the like kind of the big
Yeah.
scale, because when we could do these little things on the day to day scale, things to help ourselves, and maybe companies that can give us the time and the space to do that, we can avoid the big. We can avoid the
Yeah.
big thing. You can't avoid the big thing by taking one, 2-week vacation. It really is a day to day thing. It's really noticing every day what it is you need and trying to help in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people think, I'll just take I'll just pile this all on, keep it coming, and then I'll take a vacation." And then their vacations suck. They
Yeah.
feel stressed out on their vacation, and
Oh
they don't
gosh.
really even turn off,
And how
right?
many people take vacations? I mean, I remember some of the first times I took my kids to Disney World, we were closing a big transaction and like I'm in line like on, back then my BlackBerry and I'm not enjoying my vacation. Like I'm not getting anything out of any of it. And it was one of those things where, had I had some more maturity and stuff, I would have known probably to turn it off and be present. But when you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're the person that comes last and that winds up eventually sort of hurting everyone from the fallout. I thought it was interesting. There was another guy mentioned in the article, Otto Scharmer. I think that's it. But he teaches at the MIT Sloan School of Management. And he was really talking about the shift from sort of like an ecosystem in leadership.
Yes.
To like an ecosystem. And I was like,
ego versus echo. Yes.
Yeah.
Ecosystem versus ecosystem. I loved that.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. Like being able to move from sort of those ideas of like praising the hustle and penalizing the quiet and things like that, and framing burnout as a people problem as opposed to like an organizational problem.
Or an individual, blaming kind of the individuals.
Right, that person's just not strong enough for this culture. Like, I think back even just recently to the early days of this administration, right? And how are they praising the folks that were doing the work and sleeping on the floors and things like that, right?
Right.
And not going home. That resonated with me because that used to be something I valued. But I think it's really important to, as a leader, to really help people not fall into that trap.
Right.
Absolutely.
Great. And the one last thought I'll say, just kind of riffing off of like being a leader, we're leaders for ourselves, and we can look to ourselves to be our own leaders and making our own choices and decisions and creating our own boundaries to help ourselves.
That's so smart, Tony. I love that. Leadership starts, by leading yourself well, right? Because who wants to follow somebody who's not good at leading themselves?
That's right.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's beautiful.
Love this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a great topic. I know it's a little outside of the pure tech focus, but I think it's pretty relevant to the places that we interact with and touch in this space. Thanks for your time today, Tony, and thank you to everybody for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks.
Take care.
Jackie.
Bye-bye.